I have the privilege today to introduce you to Johan Rockström, world-leading expert of climate change, planetary boundaries, and efforts, as well as which is being announced today. Jury member of the New Shape Prize. Johan, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. A privilege to be here.
Let's start from the beginning. What is the New Shape Prize?
Well, the New Shape Prize is a first ever attempt to invite the whole world to come up with the best possible innovative ideas of how we can find a new world order, a global governance pathway that will enable us to transition into a desired future where we avoid potentially global catastrophic risks, ranging from the risk of nuclear war, pandemics, inequality, all the way to climate system collapse. So it is, fundamentally originating from the scientific evidence and all the observations we see across the world that humanity has reached a new juncture. We are in a position of dire risk. We are in the Anthropocene. We are the largest driver of change at the planetary scale. It's so dramatic, in fact, that science is today forced for the first time ever to pose a question that we've never had to explore before, namely, are we as humanity able to destabilize the whole planet? And we now have evidence that this is a real risk. We also know that the only way for us to stand a chance of chartering a good future for humanity is to become planetary stewards. And that planetary stewardship, in all honesty, we have no clue how to do. So despite the fact that we have decades of attempts of establishing different forms of global governance, we may come back to that, starting from the United Nations after the Second World War, we today actually could argue that we are facing tremendous challenges with our weak global governance, and the New Shape Prize invites the world to come up with not only the most innovative, but also the necessary and also implementable ideas for global governance at this critical juncture.
And who created it?
It was created by the Global Challenges Foundation, and the father behind the Global Challenges Foundation is the phenomenally dynamic, visionary finance analyst and, if I may say so, billionaire Laszlo Szombatvaldi, who has devoted his life to use evidence and risk assessments and probabilities of risk to navigate the financial system, creating algorithms that still today guide finance markets around the world, and applying this thinking on climate change originally, but then increasingly on planetary boundaries, establishing the Global Challenges Foundation as a platform to share knowledge and to share insights on the fact that just because we have low probability doesn't mean that we should not act on high risks, because if the risks have infinite impact on humanity, they are no longer irrelevant, they are actually high risk events. And his passion around this led to the establishment of the Global Challenges Foundation, which in turn has led to a number of insights being shared across the world. For example, in my mind, one of the most important ones is that when climate science and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change shows that the mainstream risk for humanity, if we follow business as usual, is in the order of 2-3 degrees warming, even if we today implement the Paris Agreement based on the voluntary plans submitted by all nations. But what the Global Challenges Foundation showed is that you can actually, or you have to, enter the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and recognize that there is a 2-3-4% risk or probability of reaching temperatures that would exceed 6-7 degrees Celsius, which everyone, even a climate skeptic, would agree is a no-go area. This is a kind of a disaster zone. We haven't been there for 5 million years. It would not support humanity. And then if you translate a probability of 5-6%, which may sound low, to any other risk, then you realize that this is totally unacceptable. It's societally unacceptable. So Laszlo Szombatvaldi has really introduced in the world the understanding of global catastrophic risks, and as a critical strategic step of translating those high-risk insights into solutions, he proposed the New Shape Prize to say, dear friends, with all the evidence we have, what are the best ideas of reconfiguring the architecture on global governance, recognizing that we have a mismatch. The risks exceed our capacity to deal with them.
So more specifically, with the New Shape Prize, what are we trying to solve here?
Well, that I think is potentially, I'm glad that there's a very high potential price sum to be won, $5 million US, because it's not a small ask. Because the New Shape Prize invites the world to find solutions to all global risks that threaten humanity, from the risk of uncontrolled cyber war, artificial intelligence going out of control, pandemics, climate change, catastrophic ecological disasters. Basically, the whole array of, let's put it very simple, of challenges that can only be solved through collective action at the global scale. And the recognition that we need collective maturity, we need to take a step of a mind shift to say 196 countries in the Anthropocene, in a fully globalized world, we can no longer just operate egoistically to sort of say build the walls around our nations and have protection inside our nation states. There is more than ever, which has been recognized, since the early days of global governance, again pre-Second World War actually. But still, today we are potentially at the weakest state over the last 50 years on global governance, and we need to strengthen more than ever. So the New Shape Prize actually invites solutions for all of these global, potentially catastrophic risks across the whole portfolio of risks. And of course, our our hope, or let's say dream outcome, is to find generic, systemic solutions for these risks.
And why is the new shape, in your opinion, needed?
Well, I think that's obvious from the mismatch between the scientific evidence and what we're observing in the world and our incapability to really be stewards of those risks. That we have institutions, both informal and formal. We are actually, in many cases, doing as good as we can. We're working through international agreements. We have more than 500 multinational environmental agreements, and despite that, we're moving decisively towards potentially climate disaster. We have just signed the Paris Agreement, but we're still not transitioning in a way that would follow the scientific pathway. We're moving into the digital revolution without having rules of the game for that trajectory for humanity. So the justification for this is really the mismatch, and it is citing Laszlo Szombatvalve again, is the conviction that strengthening global governance will benefit humanity. And that, of course, may seem obvious when we discuss it here, but it is seen as a provocation in many parts of the world today, that handing over power or handing over legitimate action and execution capacity to others than your own, if it's a business or a community or a nation, is still seen as something controversial. And this prize, I foresee, to be honest, even if we don't find, which we certainly won't do, the kind of golden bullet that will solve everything, it will certainly raise the conversation on global governance to a completely new level. And that is why it's so fantastic to have this conversation with you right here in Davos at the World Economic Forum, which is one of the platforms where, the elite in the world of business and policy meets to discuss actually governance dimensions of the world economic future for humanity in the world. So I think there's, let's shake things up in a way. I think that's one part of the global shape, the New Shape Prize.
And when it comes to just the ideas that we've received, where are they from?
The whole world. There's 2,700 entries. They come from all continents. essentially all nations. It comes from academics, it comes from NGOs, it comes from businesses, it comes from crazy, individualist inventors. It is it has actually spurred an enormous interest, almost an overwhelming interest. You get everything from various serious consortia of academic scholars across different universities, all the way to NGOs coming in with really serious initiatives, to some crazy ideas that might be not the winners, but I think it's, to be honest, this will be an enormously rich archive of our state of thinking on global governance in 2018 in the world. And that in itself will have a huge value in moving forward on finding solutions.
So just with this prize, do you think that a prize is the best way to approach this problem that you have described in the world?
That's a difficult question for me, sitting in the jury and in the Global Challenges Foundation board.
Why is a prize
You know,
usually the best way?
To be honest, I've been questioning whether a prize is the right way to go. I have already now, before the prize even is announced, the winner or winners are even announced, I've had to admit that I am wrong and that it's a good idea to launch the prize, for the simple reason that it's spurred so much interest that it actually is like it's like vacuum cleaning the best ideas in the world in a certain subject. So I think that is invaluable, actually. But I certainly continue to be convinced that this is not the solution. This is one way of adding value. But then, of course, the big work starts downstream of any great idea or any great ideas. And that, I think, is a challenge with a prize like this. Because remember that normally we give prizes to accomplishments that have been done, like the Nobel Prize. The New Shape Prize is actually giving a prize to an idea to be accomplished. And that is a fundamental difference. And of course, therefore I really see it as a way of, it's a kind of an integrated assessment of the state of thinking, but it's certainly not, it's not going to, solve the future for us. That's why I'm emphasizing that one of the great values we also see already is that it raises, global governance to a new level of attention.
And then going back to the entries, how have they been assessed?
Well, this is also one of the innovative elements of the New Shape Prize, where kind of a fully interdisciplinary set of review panels have been put in place regionally in different continents, who have been, screening submissions from those regions. So there's kind of a like quarterfinals and semifinals and reaching the final stage. And at the final stage, the final shortlisted entries will be invited to the New Shape Forum in May, presenting, dialoguing, colliding with both stakeholders, but of course with the jury. The jury will be sitting there as well, scrutinizing this, and then from that interaction, distilling out a winner or several winners. So there's been a very interesting pyramid of how to go from entry to the New Shape Forum in May.
And can you talk a bit about who are in the jury?
Well, to be honest, I'd like to it's a very high level jury with former heads of state, scientists, deep policy thinkers. It is a very high prominent jury, but I'd rather show the names on a slide or something like that, and then walk that through with in a dialogue with all of you.
And final question, what are the next steps? We have the New Shape Forum here behind. Maybe you can talk a bit about that.
Well, the next step is, the final shortlisting is ongoing right as we speak. The New Shape Forum will be a very dynamic, I foresee it like it's almost like a TED Global event with global governance engaged and sustainability and risk engaged, communities gathering for an exchange of ideas of these shortlisted presentations, but also conversations with them, and then in the end, announcement of the winners of this prize, which will not be the end of it. It will be the starting point for a journey of what we foresee at the Global Challenges Foundation, also looking for partnerships for implementation of these great ideas.
Thank you, Johan.